Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about AEW WrestleDream, October the 12th, 2024. Okie dokie. So, there is a big note. Apparently, Jimmy Jacobs has been let go from AEW, or he has left, one or the other. He was on the creative team of AEW, and now he has been blamed for all the really bad things that has been going on AEW for the last couple of years. Apparently there is, or the last couple of months anyway, because he hasn't been there that long. I think he's been there a little over a year. Apparently there are people passing around this statement that was made on Reddit, I believe, that basically blame Jimmy Jacobs for pretty much everything. So it says, I urge you to listen to the X Spaces on Twitter. I guess his guy name is Ibo. I think he's a Wrestle Purists. So I guess he's one of these AEW loyalist kind of guys. And he says that Jimmy Jacobs was TK's right-hand man, did not believe in the rankings, was not familiar with Kazuchika Okada, was not familiar with AEW programming before coming in. He was solely responsible for the Learning Tree program. Every single Chris Jericho segment was a Jimmy Jacobs segment. He did not want to push Daniel Garcia and found it laughable when it came to pushing Daniel Garcia. He was opposed to Takeshita winning the ladder match for the TNT title. And they says that Jimmy Jacobs leaving was comparable to Vince leaving creative-wise. He was said to be Dynamite's top writer. He says that AEW talent was listening anonymously on the space and agreed to all of this, which is interesting because if you saw this show, who do you blame for this show? Let's just go through this real quick. I don't know what Jimmy Jacobs is responsible for, but I do know Jimmy Jacobs. I'm familiar with him. Jimmy Jacobs was on the independents for decades before he became a backstage guy for WWE. The idea that he would not be familiar with Kazuchika Okada is not believable. The idea that he would not see anything in Daniel Garcia, who knows? I don't know. That he was against Takeshita winning the ladder match, I don't know. Those kinds of things, we don't know. But the idea that this guy, who I believe was a friend of the Young Bucks, so much so that he joined them in a picture while he was under WWE contract, which is the reason why he got fired in the first place from WWE. The idea that that guy is not familiar with indie wrestlers and guys from Japan, when a lot of those people that we're talking about here, Danielson, for starters, Moxley, all these guys were indie wrestlers while he was an indie wrestler at the same time. He's familiar with all of these people. Come on, man. I mean, it just seems like they have to blame somebody for all of the missteps in AEW. And even if he was responsible for the Learning Tree program, there's a lot of other really bad stuff on this show, on the AEW show that he is not being blamed for. But apparently he was Tony Khan's right-hand man, and there is an alternative response. Some people have said that he was burned out, and so he chose to leave because he was Tony Khan's, again, right-hand man since 2023, and essentially he's been helping to write these Dynamites, and they've been very bad, by the way, but apparently they've been burning him out, But however that happens, blaming this guy for every single thing that you do not like seems incredibly petty. It's something that a AEW friendly media would do. But then when this show went off the air, people were very upset, and then there was no Jimmy Jacobs to blame. So there's a lot of things that happen on this show that Jimmy Jacobs are not going to be there to take the blame for. So I'm very interested in who you're going to blame next. All right. So WrestleDream, the Tacoma Dome in Tacoma, Washington. Tickets distributed 7,628. It was probably a little bit more people in there. This was not a sellout. There was about almost 700 tickets remaining, according to WrestleTix. This is, of course, before the big walk-up near the end of the show. So who knows? They may have gotten over 8,000 at this point. So there was a cringe Antonio Inoki tribute at the beginning because this show is a tribute to Antonio Inoki, apparently. That is very embarrassing. Also very embarrassing, Rico Constantino was on the pre-show teaming up with Maximum Male Models, and who would have ever thought that of all the 2000s WWF guys you bring in, Rico Constantino would be that guy. I don't understand. I just don't understand. I don't get it. It's over my head. I gotta say, the brain's too big. Your mega mind on this one, I don't get it. I'm not understanding it. So, why you bring in Rico? Who knows? Now, this show, of course, had 9 matches on it, which is incredibly bloated. We talk about Triple H with the 5 matches, and that's not enough, or that the show is consumed with commercials and commercial breaks and stuff like this. But then AEW doubles up, and it's too much. There's at least 5 filler matches on this show. At least 5. The first one is also a filler match. Jay White defeats Hangman Page. Solid enough match. I can't really say anything bad about it. It just was there. Jay White won. Kind of a sneaky win. Not dominant. They let him beat Hangman, which is somebody he wasn't able to beat before. I believe he challenged Hangman for the title, I believe. And he lost a bunch of times. So Jay White is back with a bang. He just came back, and now he's beating Hangman Page. That's fine. Match 2, Mariah May defeats Willow Nightingale to remain the Women's World Champion. This was fine. Willow has found out some new submission hold while she was in Mexico, and it allowed her to, it's kind of like an Indian deathlock a little bit. And then she was taking Mariah May's head and jamming it into her own knee, which is fun. That was a fun move. Mariah May ends up winning, I believe, with a knee strike. Nigel McGuinness on commentary for Mariah May is excellent. It reminds me of when people used to talk about Mandy Rose and adding so much color to her and her character. This match was also kind of fillery. I get it, you have to have a women's match on the show because people will complain if you don't have one. I wish they would have taken their time and built up Willow a little bit more. I really like Willow. I don't think Willow's had a bad match. Well, not that I've seen, but then again, I don't watch Rampage or Collision, so maybe. But her stuff on Dynamite is usually pretty good, and her stuff on pay-per-view is usually pretty good. Mariah May, of course, does have bad matches, because quite often they put her in the ring with bad performers or people I have no interest in seeing. But at least in this instance, it was good. It felt like nothing. It felt like these 2 matches felt like appetizers. As a matter of fact, the first 3 felt like appetizers. Katsuyori Shibata was defeated by Jack Perry. I didn't care about this. I don't even remember the finish, to be quite honest. All I remember is this match was just Shibata letting Jack Perry chop him and then no-selling it. Letting Jack Perry kick him and then no-selling it. I was like, oh my God, this felt like it was going on forever. This was supreme filler. I don't remember how Jack Perry won. I don't care. I am so bored with these kick and chop fests that comes with these Japanese guys. And I'm tired of the AEW fans acting like this stuff is good. It's not. It's boring. You talk about WWE having boring offense. How boring is it to just chop a guy who's going to let you chop him? And then he kicks you back. You chop him. He chops you. He kicks you. You kick him. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for 15 minutes or whatever. Get the hell out of here with that garbage. Anyway, the good stuff actually came at the end. After Shibata is dispatched, Jack Perry is going to attack Shibata with the belt, it seems like. And then here comes Daniel Garcia. So Daniel Garcia, Stone Cold Steve Garcia, comes into the ring and he stands directly in front of Jack Perry to face off with him. Jack Perry backs off, solid enough spot. From that point, MJF comes out there. His music plays. It was just a distraction. Jack Perry attacks Daniel Garcia from behind, hits him with the belt. And then while he's down, MJF assaults him, takes advantage, starts punching him in the head and face. He gets the microphone, said, thanks Daniel Garcia for telling him where his Dynamite Diamond ring was, because it took him some time, but he went and got it. And then he puts the ring on. He mocks Daniel Garcia's bidding war, says it was as real as the Seattle Supersonics. We got a pretty good reaction from the crowd. You know, that was pretty good. That was a good burn. Afterwards, he's going to cave in Daniel Garcia's head with his ring when Adam Cole's theme song plays. And Adam Cole comes out. He's rail thin. Rail thin. He stomps down to the ring. MJF freaks out and runs away. Adam Cole yells at him that he's going to get him. And the two of those guys are going to continue their feud. Immediately, I was like, wait a second. When these two were feuding a year or so ago, Adam Cole was the heel. He had created this group called the Undisputed Kingdom. They had did all these dastardly things to like Swerve and Jay White, and he was solidified as a heel. And even when he returned and the two of them did an angle, he was a heel in that angle too and got pile driven by MJF, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. So why is he now a babyface? Where is the Undisputed Kingdom? What's going on here? Well, look, AEW fans are just going to be happy Adam Cole is back in a rotation, which they should be. Adam Cole is still one of the best wrestlers in the company, even though he is pathetically small and lacking in any kind of physical development. He's coming across like a guy who's recovering from cancer. I have no idea why he's so tiny, except it's got to be genetics. He's got Somalian genetics, apparently. So Adam Cole's back, which is great. And he's going to be feuding with MJF. But MJF is going to also continue his feud with Daniel Garcia. This allows for some serious AEW television for the near future, because AEW is at its best when MJF is at the center of a lot of stuff. And right now, he's going to be in the middle of the Daniel Garcia feud and an Adam Cole feud. And you're also going to have a Daniel Garcia-Jack Perry feud. So you got some serious stuff here that you can work with. This ought to be interesting television if they use it correctly. And with Adam Cole newly returning, you got to reestablish him. So give him an opportunity to talk, explain why you should like him now when he tried to take over the company before and he wasted everybody's time with the devil storyline, which to me went on for too long for you just to ignore it. I mean, it went on forever. For you to like all of a sudden hand wave it and now, you know, Taven and Bennett and Strong and none of these guys exist anymore. None of this stuff happened. It doesn't work that way, you know? So if you're going to turn Adam Cole, I guess they have to turn too, right? So they got time, I guess, to build up. They said their next pay-per-view is in 6 weeks. So they got 6 weeks to try to make it make sense. I don't know how they're going to do that. Or if they're even going to bother doing that. They might just decide to drop it. Okay. Next. International title. Takeshita, Ricochet, Ospreay. Triple threat match. Look. Takeshita won, which is the best element of it. He won with a simple knee strike. I think he may have hit the knee strike twice. That was the simplest move in the entire match. These guys did a bunch of choreographed fight scene stuff, which of course you know they were going to do, especially with Ricochet and Ospreay in there. They're obsessed with doing these handsprings and a bunch of other things and countering stuff. A lot of it makes no sense. Listen to what they did. Takeshita hit Will Ospreay with a lariat. Will Ospreay no-sold it, landed on his feet. Jumped off the second rope handspring into a os cutter. Well, Will Ospreay stays down on the ground just long enough for Ricochet to do a 450 splash. So he no-sold the lariat, but on his own offensive move, he stays down so that Ricochet could jump on him. That's nonsense. It's ridiculous. Then Ricochet is the victim of a doomsday device, but he lands on his feet. Then he trades Poison Ranas with Will Ospreay. They just go back and forth with Poison Ranas. And then Takeshita German suplexes both of them. Again, absolute nonsense. Takeshita then tombstone power drives Ricochet through a table later on. This was a way to write Ricochet out of the match, which was actually sensible. Okay? So at this point, Don Callis, who is on commentary, decides he's going to stab Will Ospreay with a screwdriver. He gets caught. Will Ospreay is going to kill him. And then Will Ospreay stabbed from behind by Kyle Fletcher. He stabbed him in the head, and Will Ospreay just holding his head like, oh. And he's looking around, and there's Kyle Fletcher. He's like future Trunks, standing there, all flaccid and stuff. And he's like, why? Why, bruv? Why, bruv? And then he's reaching like, no, Takeshita, don't do it, bruv. And Takeshita runs and hits him the knee strike. I think he does it twice. And then he pins him to win the title. Takeshita winning the belt should have happened a year ago. But okay, we're there now. Fine. Takeshita winning the title is the best option. So that was good. After the match, Kyle Fletcher hits Will Ospreay with the Tiger Driver 91. So he dropped him on his head and neck to solidify that he is a heel now. He's a bad guy. And the United Empire is no more. So this meant something to somebody, but it didn't mean anything to me. I don't like Kyle Fletcher. I will say he looks jacked, kind of. He's not like cut to the level of like a WWE superstar, but he's very in shape, and that helps. He coming across like he's very serious. That helps. I hope he comes up with a name better than Protostar, because if he doesn't, that's not going to be good, because Protostar sucks. That sucks as a nickname, bro. Gotta tell you. Hate to break it to you, but this was the first match on the show that felt like it should be on pay-per-view. And it was the first match in which the finish made sense, and they seemed to make a right decision. That was a logical decision. Will Ospreay still stuck in the vortex of Don Callis that he's been in since he's been there from the beginning. Okay, but it's now finally starting to take shape and go to the next level. Will Ospreay, now they haven't, they apparently, people who are listening to this, you probably already watched the show or you know the spoilers already. There is a top spot open for a top babyface. Apparently they're going to fill that spot already with Darby Allin, but Will Ospreay should probably be working his way to that point in a second. Shortly, once he dispatches Kyle Fletcher. Does this mean you have to have a Takeshita Will Ospreay singles match? I do think that you need to have one. I do think that you need to have some kind of special Takeshita Will Ospreay singles match. Just for no other reason than Takeshita needs to get solidly put over by Will Ospreay. So even if it's just a cheat way, a cage match, something of that nature. Just so Takeshita can win and solidify himself as a champion, and then Will Ospreay can leave the Don Callis vortex and go do something else. But of course they're going to have matches with Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Again, Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, that means something to somebody. It doesn't mean anything to me. So Swerve Strickland has a really awesome segment right smack dab in the middle of the show. Yes, it should have been on Dynamite, but this was pretty good. MVP, Prince Nana, they're going back and forth about who should manage Swerve Strickland's career. So I'm going to truncate this. Swerve Strickland does have history with MVP. He remembers that MVP believed in him in 2017 when nobody else did. MVP reminded him of this, of course. And Swerve Strickland gave Shelton Benjamin his props by saying that Shelton Benjamin paved the way for guys like him in this business. And I immediately was taken out of it right here. Because I'm like, Shelton Benjamin was a star in 2004, 2005. When you start talking about his solo push, 2004, 2005. He was wrestling for 2 years before that. So I think he debuted in WWE in 2002 or something like that. No, it's not 1948, right? Why are people acting like 2004 is 1962 or something like that? Bobo Brazil paved the way for somebody like you, right? Ernie Ladd, Sweet Daddy Siki, those guys paved the way for somebody like you. Shelton Benjamin is a predecessor, but he's not, he's not that. Come on. Let's just be real about this. I love Shelton Benjamin. But whenever they start talking about black wrestlers and you're trying to put Shelton Benjamin Like, I wouldn't be here without you, man. It's 2004. It's not 1948 or anything like that, where a black man being in the main event is completely and totally unheard of, where you were like a special attraction or something like that. This is 2004. There had already been multiple black champions in WWE even at that time, not world champions. Let's say that. But multiple black champions. Booker T had already done it in WCW. R-Truth had already done it in TNA. These things have already been done before Shelton Benjamin was even a solo star. There was already a black Intercontinental champion. There had already been black tag team champions. Black people have already been superstars. A black man main event at the first WrestleMania. Mr. T. All right? And a black man main event at WrestleMania 11. That was Lawrence Taylor. This was not the first time a black man had been in a position of prominence. He's not even the 5th. He's not even the 10th. D'Lo Brown was a double champion in WWE before Shelton Benjamin even came in. Let's get real here, man. This is my problem with the race first stuff. They're like, oh, AEW's leaning into seeing color. They see color and they lean into it. I'm like, bro, this is phony. This is phony. It's fake. It's bullshit. Shelton Benjamin is not some great ancestor. It was 2005. That's what it was. It was 2005. You were 2 years off of having a black president. Let's get real about this, man. Anyway, Swerve Strickland gave Shelton Benjamin his props. Then he says that he has been taking a lot of L's under Prince Nana. He lost his championship. He lost his childhood home. He lost the cage match to Hangman Page. But he would not have had those things in the first place if not for Prince Nana. Then he says that he's thinking about all the potential that they can have between him and MVP. But Prince Nana is family, and you don't turn your back on family for nothing. So he told MVP to take his business card, shove it up his ass. Shelton Benjamin gets on the microphone and says, this wasn't a question. We're not asking you. We're telling you. It ain't no you without us. And so they start having a little bit of a tussle, and they get separated. MVP says, hey, we're going to make them pay for this. We're going to make them pay for it. That's a double meaning, by the way. For starters, make the people pay to see them fight, and also make Swerve pay. Double meaning. I like that. So this was a great segment. Swerve did a really good job with MVP. If you're an indie wrestling fan, you know that what MVP says is true, and you've seen that episode of The Wrestlers, which I have seen, where he was talking about Ricochet and Swerve Strickland. I'm talking about MVP now. He was talking about Ricochet and Swerve Strickland as being two guys who could take the business to the next level. So this has some significant weight to it, and they're factoring in their history and everything. But they're also going to do like Hurt Business stuff. Now, I expected Lashley to attack Swerve just in case, but they actually did a good job of holding off of that. I'm glad they did not do that, because now you have more segments that you can have later on. So this was an excellent segment. I wish they had done it on TV. It would have made it for very interesting TV, but it being great here doesn't mind. I don't mind it at all. Match 5, another filler match. Beast Mortos loses to Hologram, who was AEW Sin Cara. It was a guy who was a luchador already that they renamed Hologram. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match, and it was perfectly fine in terms of lucha libre style match. I didn't have a problem with it. It just seems weirdly placed on this show, as this match felt like it didn't need to be on this show. If it was on Dynamite, it would have been fine. There isn't much history here between these two guys, from my understanding. I think they had matches before, and Mortos lost. Hologram is Goldberg. He's undefeated. He's 15-0 with this win. Look, these guys were killing each other. You know, Hologram is tremendous in terms of athleticism, and he's going to be a good replacement for a guy like Phoenix, who's leaving apparently, if they ever let him leave, which is why you probably should just let him go, because if you have a guy like Hologram, then you could just, whatever you were going to do with Phoenix, let Hologram do it. and let Phoenix go. They're both luchadors. I hate to say that they're interchangeable, but they pretty much are. There's nothing that you're going to do with Rey Fenix that's going to really, because you've had 5 years to do it. You didn't have anything to do with Rey Fenix that matters. I think he won a singles title by complete accident because the other guy got knocked out or something like that. So you don't have any high hopes for him. Why are you keeping him around? Who knows? Just pettiness and to waste the guy's time and career, I guess. Same thing with Ricky Starks. It's like, come on, man. I'm 100. Like these guys are really testing me. Like Vince used to do that too, because I'm actually on the side of if you sign a contract, you should be held to that contract. Same time though, if you're not going to offer the guy any work, you're just going to let him sit at home. That's unfair to him, right? If he has another job waiting on him, and you're like, no, you can't take that job, but I'm not going to use you either. That's bullshit. And that's something that you should get sued for. Like, it's one thing if a guy doesn't have any other prospects, and he probably doesn't care if you're just keeping him under contract and doing nothing. But these guys have other options. They have somewhere else who may actually be looking to bring them in and do something with them. And your response isn't, well, I need you to finish up what you're doing here first. It's, well, I just need you to sit out your contract. That's garbage. All right? That's bullshit. And I think I said it before, it should be a limit that if you're not used for 90 days and you're not injured, you're just a healthy scratch sitting at home for 90 days, you should be able to challenge and ask for your release and get out of there. Same thing with Miro. There's too many guys sitting at home in AEW, getting paid who don't want to be there anymore. And Tony Khan's just kind of like, nope, I'm not doing it. And it's the same crap that they were talking about a couple years ago in WWE when Andrade and Miro and FTR or whatever was trying to get out of their deals, and they were not being let out, but they also were not brought back on TV or anything. To me, it's bullshit. And what's going on with Phoenix and all of these guys seems unfair. So I don't know why I decided to talk about that here. It was just more interesting than talking about what's coming up next. So Beast Mordos, great job. I was a big fan of him in AAA, big fan of him in TNA, fan of him here. He does tremendous. He's a great base in terms of being a big guy. They did the Gorilla Press spot, a couple of times. I think they did it 3 times in here, but hologram's very tiny. So it was fine. Darby Allin defeated Brody King. Okay. Nothing particularly interesting about this. Brody King's just a big dude. That's really all it is. He barks. I don't know why he's barking, but he does. And that's it. So the finish. How does Darby Allin, who was getting beat up the entire match, manage to beat Brody King? Well, Brody King fell onto the stairs that were propped up on their side. So the stairs, there's a flat space on the metal stairs. Brody King fell on the flat space on the stairs. Darby Allin then climbed the top rope, coffin drop onto Brody King. And then Brody King jumps into the ring at 9 when he's about to get counted out. And as he slides into the ring, he gets coffin dropped again, rolled over and pinned. 1, 2, 3. So Darby Allin, who needed a big win, got it, which is important. I guess they just wanted to have Darby wrestle at home because this is his home state. That would be the only reason you would have this match on this show. But again, this match feels like filler. I don't think it was ever in question whether Brody King was going to win or not, because I knew he wasn't going to win. If you wanted to have a filler match on the show just to get the guy on the card, it was fine. But then you didn't need the other filler matches to get people on the card, So, I don't know. Next match was the match that frustrated me the most. It pissed me off more than the main event did. I'm not going to lie to you. Private Party losing to the Young Bucks. This was killing the town heat. I know a lot of people are going to talk about how bad Danielson losing was. No. This is where they killed the town, right here. There was a really big introduction for Private Party. Amazing Red is giving him a pep talk. He looks like Eminem for some reason now. Like he looks like Eminem from one of his new music videos or something. with the beard and everything. And he's talking about how, Private Party, they're making them look bad. They're making them look stupid. No more shots, no more silly stuff. He's tired of leaving the crowd waiting. They need to go and show that they're the best tag team in the world. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. They're really building this thing up so that the place will blow the fuck up when Private Party wins. And then they lost. And me and everybody else in the building was like, what? What was this? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? They even had the Young Bucks mock them earlier by saying, you guys have done nothing for 5 years. You're nothing but a mid-card act. Perfect setup for Private Party to win the titles. And then they lose. I was like, bro, this level, this is a level of not reading the room that is beyond comparison. You were not paying attention when Private Party, you just missed the boat. All right. And it doesn't matter if they win the titles later. It don't matter if they turn heel later. They should have won the belts right here. It would have made them. But you beat them for no reason. The Young Bucks did not need to win this match. This was supposed to be like the 5-year anniversary of Private Party beating the Young Bucks. And, the Young Bucks, of course, want to overcome that loss. But within the realms of the story, Private Party are now taking a more serious edge. They're serious guys. They really want to be the tag team champions. They want to show that they're the best. They're fired up. You brought in Amazing Red to talk to them. And they still lost. It's like, bro, there's nothing you can do at this point. It's over. It's over for these guys. They're dead. You've killed the town. The crowd died after this too, by the way. Crowd did not care about the next match because they were invested in Private Party and then you beat them. Clean, by the way. And for starters, I don't understand how you can call this a tag team championship match when there were no fucking tags. I did not see not one tag this entire match. I didn't see one tag. I don't remember one tag this entire contest. They just did a bunch of shit. A bunch of choreographed offense. It's the tag team version of the triple threat match you watched earlier. It was ridiculous. And they win with the TK driver. After the match, Isaiah Cassidy was distraught. He was upset. They were trying to milk a standing ovation or something like that for Private Party. But they got some claps. But the crowd was mostly like, I don't get it. I don't understand why they lost. And I didn't understand why they lost. But this was the topping on it. Tony Schiavone doesn't even know who Private Party is, bro. When Isaiah Cassidy was standing in the ring and he's, distraught and leaning against the ropes and everything, Tony Schiavone doesn't even know which one of these guys it is. He's calling them Quinn. He's being corrected and he's still messing it up. Like there is nothing good about this. The match wasn't even good. It was typical Young Bucks shit. And Private Party are young enough and, agile enough to keep up with them. But this was typical Young Bucks. I feel bad for Private Party. I really do. Because if they were ever going to finally break out and do more, this was their chance. And you took it away from them. For no good reason. This killed the town, bro. You want to talk about how you can break characters? When you build them up. They were in the middle of something really serious with Jon Moxley and all this kind of stuff. It was supposedly there to motivate them. And it did. And you changed their characters. Only for them to lose anyway. They're just not good enough, bro. It's over. They're dead. Next match also had no business being on pay-per-view. Mark Briscoe defeats Chris Jericho. So they did a gimmick where Orange Cassidy fought off Big Bill and Rocky Romero fought off Brian Keith. And then, Mark Briscoe just beat Chris Jericho. Jericho does a J Driller on Mark Briscoe. He kicks out at 2, hulks up, fights Jericho off. Then he hits the Froggy Bow, doesn't go for the pin, instead does the J Driller of his own, pins Chris Jericho, wins the match. Jericho had no business, wrestling for this title anyway, didn't need it. But Mark Briscoe got a big win on pay-per-view. This match didn't need to be here either. It probably would have been better off on Dynamite. It probably been better off on Collision or something. I don't care about all this conglomeration, none of this nonsense. I don't dislike Mark Briscoe. It's just that the presentation of Mark Briscoe is not my favorite. Babyface Mark Briscoe, is a lovable weirdo, with missing front teeth. He's kind of a character. He's a card. I like that. But being semi-main event on this show, no. No. Jericho, of course, is past his prime. And people didn't really, I don't think people cared about this match, really. I don't think anybody really got into this thing. I don't remember people being too excited for this or down on it. It just was a thing that they put on after Private Party lost. And look, I'm not saying like Private Party was the most overact on the show, but the build-up was there. It looked like the moment was coming, and then they didn't do anything about it. So, all right, so the main event. Let's talk about this thing because there is a lot to discuss. Jon Moxley wins the AEW World Championship, defeating Bryan Danielson. And this is, of course, Danielson's retirement match. So Danielson is done as a full-time in-ring competitor, having lost to Jon Moxley via rear naked choke. Not the most exciting way to lose your career. So let's go through some of the spots. First, Danielson was attacked by Moxley during his walkout, and they started choking each other with cables, because why not? The match settles down a little bit. Danielson does a springboard dive, which I thought was pretty cool. Marina Shafir rips up the pads on the floor so that Moxley could use a Death Rider onto it later on. That should have been the finish or somewhere near the finish, but of course it wasn't. Danielson then also would kick out of another Death Rider later on. He kicked out at 1, however. Fantastic call from Jim Ross, who says that if Danielson kicked out at 1, because he might not have been able to kick out if it got to 2. Like, hey, you better kick out now, brother, or you're not going to kick out at all. After that, this was, of course, kicking out at 1 is a big AEW thing. I think somebody had kicked out at 1 earlier, too, so that's a big thing for them. They love that. He spit in Moxley's face and then slapped him, which, Moxley just brought on more damage. Another Death Rider, then put him in a rear naked choke, and Danielson did not respond. Match is called off. The crowd dies immediately. They're like, holy shit. Are you serious? Like, yeah, that's it. Danielson just didn't respond to the referee. That was it. The match is over. Your guy, your hometown guy, he's dead. So then we get mixed signals. After Danielson loses, he's laying down on the mat. Moxley kneeled and did a traditional martial arts bow to Danielson. And that seemed like he was going to show him some respect. And then after the match, they put the world title in a black bag, and then they get a plastic bag, and they're going to, again, plastic bag Danielson. They're going to smother him again. Wheeler Yuta and Darby Allin run to the ring because they're going to fight off Claudio, Pac, and the rest of these guys. They begin to chase them off, and then Yuta, of course, attacks Darby Allin from behind. They tape up Darby Allin to force him to watch them as they murder Bryan Danielson. Moxley looks like he's going to be the one that's going to finish off Bryan Danielson, but instead he passes the buck over to Wheeler Yuta. He tells Yuta, you got to do it. And Yuta is, he's conflicted. He had no problems, destroying Darby Allin. That was no big deal. But Danielson, he loves Danielson. So he puts the bag over Danielson's head, and he's begging Danielson to stop fighting. Just die, essentially. Just give it up. Stop breathing. Die. Private Party tried to come in there and help him. That didn't work. They got beat up, too. Danielson, of course, didn't die from the plastic bag over the head. So then they put a chair, wrapped it around his neck, and then stomped the chair around Danielson's neck and they just left him laying there like a hunk of meat. And he was stretchered out before the BCC or whatever we're calling them. They just took off. They got bored and left. They got bored of murdering Danielson in front of Darby Allin and they left. They cut Darby free and he watched Danielson get put on a stretcher and carried out. This was a very emotional, gut-wrenching completion to Bryan Danielson's career. And I'm not going to lie, I liked it. I didn't like the after-match attack. I didn't like the finish to the match. I didn't like that he beat him with a rear naked choke. I didn't like the bag over the head. I didn't like that. But the chair spot and the stretcher, I'm fine with that. Okay? I'm fine with it because Danielson already had his moment. All In was the big moment. He got the confetti. He got the family in the ring. That was his moment. That was pretty much when his career was over, when he won that title. And now he just got to carry it for a little bit before he puts over the next guys and opens up a space for the new top guys to come in. Now, it was devastating emotionally for that audience due to the fact that he is the hometown guy, was the hometown hero, and he was completely destroyed. That sucked for them, but it was sometimes anger is the appropriate emotion. Sometimes anger is the right, disappointment, is the right emotion. This felt like their attempt at doing WrestleMania 30 when Brock broke the streak. This was their attempt to do that, which is to shock the audience into silence, shock the audience into quiet, take the audience out of it, and to now force them to pay attention to what's going on because there's something important happening. I like that element of it because they already gave you the grand moment in London with the pyro and the kids and all that. There's no need to do that again. Danielson's loss is going to be heartbreaking, because you're never going to see him again. But they didn't give him the Ric Flair goodbye either, where it was, he got to blow kisses and shake hands and bow out gracefully. He got killed. He got killed off. And even though this probably will not be his last match, it's the formal end of his long in-ring career. And I think it was great. Because now you've got people interested in Dynamite. Now people are going to say, holy shit, what now? What's next? Now Moxley is the champion again. He's fulfilled whatever kind of destiny he was supposed to have here. What's next? We can't mourn forever. Danielson's done. We can't mourn forever. Darby's going to be the guy that's going to step up next. That's his position in the company now. He's going to fill the Danielson's role. He's going to be the guy pursuing Moxley. So my criticism of them booking Moxley versus Danielson anyway, I guess I'm going to have to say it was wrong because I like the way that they did this. And I don't think you could have done it with anybody else. And it would have had the same punch, I noticed people are like, well, you're saying Moxley is AEW's version of Brock Lesnar. And I'm saying, well, yeah, he is. He's a guy that whenever something is going wrong, they always go back to him. He's old faithful. There was issues with Punk, they went with Moxley. He's the stable guy for the company. He is the first guy to jump ship from WWE. He's a trusted talent who's not going to go anywhere, who's not going to do anything. But he also knows business. He knows that he's carrying this thing in order to make somebody next. And not to be the guy, the man, or whatever. It's not his era. He's got the torch so that he could pass it. He knows that. He's got to know that. And apparently Darby's going to be the guy that's going to get it. And while I am wishy-washy on Darby, I'm thinking maybe they're probably going to go with Will Ospreay because Darby's kind of tiny. But Darby is the guy who's the closest to being what a Bryan Danielson is to AEW. Darby, I'm talking about symbolically. Darby is probably the closest guy to that. I'm talking about being the heart and soul of the indies, representing the indie spirit. That's what AEW wants. That's what Darby Allin does. That's what Bryan Danielson does. But Danielson is 42 or something like that. He can't go forever. So AEW has the top guys that they wanted. Because Moxley also represents the same thing that Danielson represents and the same thing that Darby represents, which is the heart of the indies. You know, guys who are too rugged for WWE, too unique, too different for WWE. Even though Moxley and Danielson both succeeded there, they were never considered the guy there. And they also had to do things that they didn't necessarily love doing while they were there. But Darby is sort of the pure indie spirit, untouched by working in WWE, which is what it looks like they want to do in terms of putting him over. And all of this is not going to make any sense if Darby doesn't defeat Jon Moxley for the title eventually, and instead they give it to Will Ospreay. Then, you know, Ospreay is, I guess, on that same level, but there's a reason they specifically put Darby Allin in the center of this. And that's because they wanted him to be the next guy. They wanted to put all the sympathy on him. There's a reason for that. So, okay. I didn't mind the sad ending to the show. Sad endings can also be good endings. Danielson losing would have been sad either way. They didn't make it too dramatic, with him blowing kisses on his way out, you know, hugging his kids and everything. They made it dramatic in another way where they tried to murder him. And I think that the murder was too far. All right. The bag over the head, pushing Wheeler Yuta of all people. Come on. Like, killing Danielson's career is to boost Moxley or Claudio or Pac. Fine. But for Wheeler Yuta, come on. This is going to be a waste, right? But whatever. All in all, I liked the sad ending. I liked that the audience was invested enough in the story that they know what it meant when Danielson couldn't defend himself anymore. They know what it meant. It was obvious that this guy can't go anymore. The dragon has expired. The fire is gone. He doesn't have anything left anymore. He gave it all to you already. And then when you look at the match, he, you know, got dropped on his head on the floor, dropped on his head in the ring, you know. So how much more could the guy take, you know, realistically, okay? So I appreciated the response that the audience got. I appreciated that they was writing Danielson off in a more permanent way. I would say that if you want to look at what Danielson's legacy is in AEW, for the 2 or 3 years that he's been there, he has been the guy that they use for big matches, but he never wanted to be the champion. That's not what he came to AEW for. He didn't come there to be the top guy. He came there because he wanted to end his career on a more fun note. You know, outside of having WWE style matches, he wanted to have indie style matches. And yes, it just ended with him getting injured a bunch of times and having to sit on the shelf. But he did some really great shit in AEW. You know, he had great matches with Ricky Starks, had a pretty good match with Kenny Omega, the first match especially. You know, had some good matches with Okada, had a great match with Swerve. He had some good matches in these couple of years, you know, and we all knew Danielson wasn't going to last very long anyway. You know, this whole thing was not meant to go long term. I'm surprised it went as long as it did, if we're being honest. They forced the belt on him for what it seemed like, because it seemed like he didn't want it. They forced it on him, and it leads to a huge moment for his career where he got to celebrate with his kids in London with the confetti and the fireworks and the huge crowd, reminiscent of his WrestleMania win. So they got that, and then they do this. So they got you emotionally in both ways, and I think you got to show some appreciation for that. And if you're upset that Danielson was beaten in this way, you're supposed to be. Now you're supposed to say, all right, did it kill the town? Did it, was it too much to the point that you can't come back here, or that is going to affect television in a couple of days? Is it going to affect Dynamite on Wednesday? I don't think so. I think if you announce that Danielson's going to talk at that show or something, people are going to tune in to be interested in what he has to say at the end. I think if there's a farewell address or even a celebration from Moxley or something like that, that could get people interested. But this is a very delicate situation. Much like when Brock broke the streak, I'm going to say this is similar. The moment is going to live forever. But can you get some momentum out of this thing? Can you bring something that's going to make this moment worth it? You know, when you think about Brock breaking the streak, it immediately had him destroy John Cena afterwards. And he won the title. Now, you may say, well, that didn't mean anything because he had been champion before. But it continued Brock's momentum, you know? And then the momentum was all about building, you know, the next guy, which was Roman Reigns, all right? Now, in this situation, you've killed Danielson. Moxley already has the belt. So those two things are the same thing in terms of Moxley has killed the hero, ended his career, but he also won the title in doing so. So now you don't get that second notch. Like Brock beat the streak, killed the legend, but then he had to win the title later on. So that continued his momentum. Here, Moxley got both of those things at the same time. So now how are you going to continue his momentum? If you're going to unveil whoever is behind this, and it better be Shane McMahon at this point, or Vince, or somebody who matters, in order to keep this thing going. Otherwise, it's going to flame out in 2 or 3 weeks. And I don't want that to happen because there literally is nothing else you can do. This is interesting. This is interesting storytelling from AEW. You've built up something that a lot of people are talking about. You have to capitalize on it. And you have to let everybody know immediately because they don't have any faith in this company anymore. The faith is shaken. So for the people who are casuals or doubters, those people need to be convinced that you're going to do something with this angle that's going to make what they feel matter in the future. Now, if you're not into Darby Allin, I can tell you right now, you're probably not going to end up happy after this thing because I can see this being used to launch Darby Allin to the next level. I'm okay with Darby. You know, I think that he fits what AEW is trying to do, as I explained previously. So, very delicate situation for AEW. They got a great story. They got a hook. They hook people. You know, even if you don't like the show, you may have liked Danielson, and you might be like, okay, what are they doing with this guy? And if you're not turned off, which some people are, then you're interested. You're intrigued. So they got you hooked. Now you got to follow up. Okay. So overall, I think WrestleDream as a show was incredibly bloated. There was way too many matches on the card. Most of these matches were not properly built, or there was nothing gained, nothing lost in the match. So the following matches I thought were absolute filler. Jay White versus Hangman Page, Shibata versus Jack Perry, Mark Briscoe, Chris Jericho, Darby Allin, Brody King, Hologram, and Beast Mortal. So that's 5 matches on the show. So maybe there only should have been 4, you know. And I get Darby being on the show because, you know, again, hometown guy. You want to have one of the hometown guys win anyway, so the other hometown guy could lose. But the rest of the show felt bloated. It felt way too long. And it had a sad ending. So most people are going to give it a thumbs down due to the sad ending. I'm not. I appreciate stories. And sometimes your story has a sad ending. Sometimes the hero fails. Sometimes the hero loses. And a new hero can rise. I support that. We all knew Danielson's career was coming to an end. They told you this months ago that it was over. So I'm okay with it. You know, what about you? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.